Well, I was born on January 12th, 1876. At the time, my mother, Flora Wellman, had been living with a man named William Janey. But when my mother became pregnant, he deserted her. My mother really didn't want me either, and in fact, my birth took such a toll on her that I had to be sent to spend 8 months with a wet nurse because my mother was physically unable to take care of me. While I was with Mammy Jenny, a woman who treated me as if I were her own son, my mother married John London and moved into a house with him and his daughter. Even when I returned after 8 months, she still showed no true affection for me and never really cared for me. It was my stepsister, Eliza, who served as a mother for me. She loved me unconditionally, and if it weren't for her or John London, I don't believe I would have been able to survive. She didn't want me, and she never attempted to love me. I was the reason her hopes and aspirations were ruined, and to her, I was the reason she would never live the life she wanted. I was nothing more than a badge of shame. She was a fanciful woman, and constantly persuaded John to pick up everything and move somewhere else. Even when he found success at a produce farm in Oakland, she demanded the family move away, somewhere she desired, where she hoped she could finally live the life she wanted. But she was never satisfied, and wouldn't be until all of our lives were just as miserable as hers. Well, when I was 14, I graduated the Cole Grammar School. Unfortunately, mostly due to my mother's fanciful desires, we weren't wealthy enough for me to be sent to high school, and instead I was sent to work at Hickmock's Cannery. They were awful conditions. I worked hours on end on loud and monotonous machinery, and did grueling work for merciless employers. I hated it, and found every way to escape it. I often found myself in one of two places: at the library, exploring the literature recommended to me by the dear librarian Ina Coolbrith, or at a saloon somewhere along the Oakland or San Francisco waterfront, getting drunk and listening to fascinating tales from sailors all across the seas. I found a man selling his sloop for $300, and after turning to Mammy Jenny for the money, started my profitable career as an oyster pirate. Soon after, I was able to pay off my debt to Mammy Jenny, with interest, and also provided for my entertainment at the bars along with my family, where I became the sole individual to actually bring money to the household as just a young teenager. I was only 17 years old when my work was first published in a newspaper competition, even despite having been out of school for over 3 years. I started to write for magazines. However, I did not start receiving much credit or acknowledgement until my story, The White Silence, was published. Personally, I don't believe my career truly started until 1900 with the publication of another of my northern stories, An Odyssey of the North. The Call of the Wild, my story about a sled dog during the height of the Yukon Gold Rush, was my work that catapulted me into literary greatness. The novel had taken me 3 months to write, but was the greatest work of my entire career. I had finally found notoriety, and in no time at all, my work was being published in newspapers that had formally denied my prior works. Well, I had spent quite a bit of time up in the north, searching fruitlessly for yellow metal in the ground, just like so many others both before and after me. I had invested a tremendous amount of money in the faint hope that I could find gold and be wealthier beyond my dreams in just a matter of weeks. But for all the resources I poured into my prospect, I never realized a cent from any properties I had an interest in up there. Still, I have been managing to pan out a living ever since on the strength of the trip. Absolutely, and it wasn't the last time I did either. In fact, practically all of my works are based off my life experiences, and in a way, are autobiographical. Another novel of mine, The Sea Wolf, is based on my time working as a sealer on the Sophie Sutherland, a trip I had taken early in my life when I was just 17. I lived the true life of a sailor, and incorporated that journey throughout my novel, intertwined with a more appropriate story than the true debaucheries of my trip. I also wrote non-fictional work, using letters and personal